Hi, welcome to the ZP webinar, the ZP Developer Zone webinar. So we do this webinar every Thursday at approximately 8 a.m. London time. We often go early because of meetings, but I'm essentially going to jump straight into it and start going through it. So we use the Developer Zone to answer questions or that have come in during the week. Don't forget there is the ZP Academy. If you need free information about electrochemical sensors, you can sign up there. Don't forget that we do these webinars, so any technical questions get answered in webinars, but we're also having some live streaming webinars. A lot of what will be discussed today, whether it's ion selective electrodes, whether it's testing in water, whether it's testing, I wouldn't say drugs of abuse, but things like THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, then the webinars are going to be relevant to that, especially the Sensei All. We do have collaborations. Most of our collaborations at the moment happen in Norway or the UK. We're sponsoring something like 5 PhDs across the UK at the moment, and we do a lot of what's called KTPs, particularly with Swansea University, because I have an affiliation there. So we do have a lot of collaborations going on. We've also historically done a lot of masters, or done some masters projects with Heriot-Watt University, for example, because they had an Erasmus program that was running with USN. So we do have a lot of collaborations that go on. Their job offers, probably following us on LinkedIn is the best place for that. And then we also do have our workshops as well. So with regard to collaborations as well, I do want to bring up that ZP is having a conference in June, which I think is relevant, especially if you're a kind of if you're a UK academic looking to collaborate with the ZP as well. So just as a comment on workshops, if you see a link, by the way, I'll make sure I put the link underneath the video at the end of here. But we do workshops every month. We've got one in Coventry, and we'll also have one in Norway as well. These are either on IVD technology, in vitro diagnostics technology, or also on wearables as well, continuous glucose monitoring. You can see from here that in 2023, in fact, we had a workshop every month. Sometimes 2 a month as well. So if you're interested in kind of understanding ZP technology better, or meeting with us, then come to one of our workshops as well. And these workshops, in fact, I'll dive into the workshops a little bit more as well. These workshops are not just kind of theoretical, there's actually practical aspects as well. I was mentioning that some of the questions, and in fact all the questions that have come in this week, again, if you see this link, there'll be a link underneath this video on YouTube afterwards. Please sign up, come to that Sense It All. And also the food sense as well, because the food sense is a application of Sense It All. And Sense It All really is this kind of transition of data in the lab or data in application all the way to the cloud, but that will come clear as I go along. I think this is particularly relevant to some of the queries that have come in. This is commercialization of electrochemical assays. So at ZP, we're really all about trying to get technology from the lab onto the market, and therefore we kind of have this. We're having this conference in the UK in June 2024. Early bird registration is opened up, and I'm making a particular effort to make sure that we kind of get the community in the UK to kind of come along and also nationally or internationally as well, but make a particular effort to make sure that the UK community come along to see lectures and give lectures around the commercialization of electrochemical assays, which I will put here. ZP also does corporate and consulting workshops, so we do actually turn up on people's sites and give these workshops as well. And this is a good reflection of what happens in our workshop. So if you can come to a ZP workshop, fantastic. We make what we call generation 1 glucose sensors, generation 2 glucose sensors. If it's more of an IVD, in vitro diagnostic type audience, then we'll change that to IVD. We make ketone sensors, we learn the theory. We also sort of do the testing. We discuss analysis, whether it's voltammetry, potentiometry, impedance spectroscopy, differential pulse voltammetry, square wave voltammetry. We demonstrate the commercial applications of this. We show how to do manufacturing and achieve factory calibration. And then we also talk about how to sort of produce at high volumes. We also discuss ion selective electrodes, which is kind of relevant because one of the questions, or two of the questions today, are actually about ion selective electrodes. We talk about QMS, quality management systems. This is something that, at least in technical courses in the UK, people don't talk about quality management systems, and I agree. You should be learning the core science and the core engineering, but then sometimes to make that kind of manufacturer in the real world, you do need a QMS system as well. I think the philosophy at ZP, whether we're sponsoring an EPSRC students or whether we're doing any kind of collaboration, really is around about, there's an end user out there, somebody who's really going to benefit from the sensor. Now in this case I put nitrate, which is a bit unusual, but I've got the indication of a farmer and the indication here of a patient. But either way, there's people like researchers, engineers, maybe in academia, maybe in startups, there may be just entrepreneurs, and so you've got people on one side who think that who are trying to solve problems for people on the other side. And at ZP, our kind of things like SensiAll platform and our screen printed electrodes, and also our Kate potentiostat are all signed up, or all designed rather, to actually really bridge that gap. There's something, obviously called the chasm of death between what maybe happens in academia and what the real world really requires, or the commercialization aspect of that. And at ZP, a lot what I'll talk about today is actually the SensiAll platform, and actually it means that we can get sensors into or onto real people really quickly, because then these sensor technologies that we have communicate with our cloud system called Julie. So we can kind of, if we give somebody a wearable sensor, or we put a drugs of abuse IVD into the market, or not into the market, but into the hands of users, when they're using those technologies, then the data is going up to the cloud, which then goes back to the scientist, engineer, entrepreneur, and actually they can sort of see how the data is coming in, and that means that we can improve upon it, and then essentially go through this iteration cycle. This kind of philosophy of do it fairly quickly, get it out there in the real world, really is a kind of lean startup mentality, and I'd almost say lean research. So lean research, I have found that people are using this term on the internet, but you have a term called lean manufacturing, which is obviously manufacture as kind of efficiently as you can. You have lean startup, which is kind of be as frugal as with the money that you're given as you can. But I also think that these principles can go to lean research as well. And lean research for me is just really using the concept of minimally viable product much earlier on. I think what happens is people try to make these kind of perfect technologies in an academic setting, and you can't, because that really requires a commercial setting to be able to do that. So I want to kind of encourage people to have this kind of lean research mentality. If that's not clear, then we can discuss it in webinars, we can discuss it at workshops, and we can also discuss it at our June conference in the UK as well. Just to say that this kind of lean research concept will, we can leverage all of our biosensors into it. A lot of the questions today around, there's some questions around ion selective electrodes. There's also some questions around calcium, sodium and potassium, which are also ion selective electrodes. Some of the questions today are around stress monitoring, which is cortisol. So at ZP we do have a lot of sensors. Just a quick comment, I think one of the sensors that will be really interesting in the wearable space is also testosterone, which we have as well. So we do have something called the SensiAll platform. SensiAll platform, it does have a spectroscopic piece of hardware associated with it. It does have an IVD, or electrochemical in vitro diagnostic piece of hardware associated with it, and we also have a wearable watch aspect associated with it as well. So these are just pieces of hardware that are really ways of talking to our sensors, or sensors that we develop with you, and getting all that data up to the cloud. And again, as part of that kind of lean research philosophy of, here's some hardware, let's get it into the world, maybe with a new novel sensor, and let's start actually seeing how robust, or even getting what that user experience is. Something I would say is that if you're doing electrochemical analysis and electrochemical development, and you're interested in kind of having an academic commercial relationship with ZP, please get onto some of our screen printed electrodes, because this makes it much easier for us to translate your research into products, or minimally viable products. So I'll put these links underneath the video as well. So I do just want to put a shout out for ZP screen printed electrodes. Now I want to get to the questions themselves. So somebody's very interested in wearable sensors for construction workers. I will discuss that. detection of drugs of abuse. I will discuss that. Sensors for calcium, potassium, and sodium. And I will also discuss iron selective electrodes at the end here. So I've got quite a few slides, so I'll try to go through it. The question is, do we have a sweat-based platform for monitoring people? And the quick answer is we do, and I have a case study on it. Do our sensors provide data or continuous data? The quick answer is yes, and I have a slide on that. Can you monitor multiple biochemicals simultaneously? Yes, you can, but you've got to understand that making wearable biosensors is probably one of the toughest things you can do. Now, I think ZP has really made that job much easier because we've put so many of the building blocks in place. But when people say I want to do one thing, that's doable. But once you start going too broad, too quick, unless you're well funded, you're just going to dilute your efforts. How invasive is your technology? Well, we've done sweat analysis, we've done microneedles, we've done what's called transdermal wire sensors, and we've also done implantable sensors as well. And I will discuss that as well. Can our sensors operate 8 hours or more? The quick answer is, like a CGM, a continuous glucose monitoring sensor, is designed to operate for 12 days. But depending on the application, if you try to do sweat analysis, I imagine that in a construction site, it may be in Dubai, that would be really quite a challenging environment. So I'm not sure that you would be able to kind of wear a sweat sensor for more than 8 hours in that kind of environment. It gets quite horrible just with the sweat alone. So, most of our biosensors, by the way, will work with our wearable platforms. We do KTPs in the UK. We've primarily done them with Swansea. I'm a little bit outside of Wales. They're tougher because, to be fair, in Wales they give good funding for KTPs. We also do InnovateUK grants. I often find with InnovateUK grants that people are keen to do them with us, but they don't have a strong business case. So if they don't have a strong business case, then it's hard to do. And we have started to actually write business cases for academic institutions. So if you're an academic institution and you're looking to do an InnovateUK grant, but you don't have a strong business case, then ZP can be commissioned to write those business cases. We're quite good at it because we have a good understanding of technology, we have a good understanding of InnovateUK grants, and we also have a good understanding of what a business case is. Question number 2 is about detecting THC, which I will discuss. Question number 3 is about measuring calcium, potassium, and sodium. And question number 4 is around iron selective electrodes. Do we face challenges? What's the new possibility for new sensors? Accuracy, and in which industries are the sensors applied? So I'll get to that at the end. So question number 1, as a case study, here's we were getting a lot of inquiries about measuring lactate in athletes. So if you were to measure, or if you were trying to develop wearable sensors for either construction workers or let's say athletes, and lactate's good because it kind of shows if somebody's working out and they're gone into anaerobic respiration, then the lactate will go up. So this is a model of the skin. You've got the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous tissue. At ZP, I spent a lot of my career making these transdermal sensors. These are like the Abbott Freestyle Libre 2 or the Abbott Freestyle Libre 3, which are the kind of CGM sensors continuous glucose monitoring sensors that you see on people. We have microneedles. It's probably worth saying that ZP has a patent portfolio of 50 patents on microneedles. So we're pretty covered on microneedles. And we have sweat sensors, so they're sort of non-invasive. I'll talk about that today. We also do an implanted device, but with the implanted device, we're implanting continuous glucose monitoring and cortisol sensors into fish. And I think we're a long way off trying to put them into human beings. Trying to put an implanted sensor all under the skin and leaving it in place. That's a real clinical challenge and also a regulatory challenge as well. So I wouldn't recommend that people, if you're going to do that, as an academic, you are on a sort of 10-year journey on that. But we do have implanted technologies as well. In terms of biosensors, yes, most of our biosensors can be translated into wearable sensors. We have the hardware. I haven't mentioned some of the hardware today actually, but we also have an app. There'll be a QR code coming up in a bit. So if you have a smartphone and you're watching this video, please get your, especially if it's Android, get the QR code reader up because we'll be showing you something in a bit. But we have these apps. These apps work with a system called Julie. Julie is a cloud system. You can sign up for Julie for free. But everything we design at ZP, we make it sure that the data ends up in Julie. Julie really answers the question about, even if you're just doing lab work, let's say you were an academic and you were doing lab work, one of the questions I can sometimes ask these people is, where is your data? And the answer is the data is often on the hard drives or the cloud drives of the student, but it's not centralized. So at ZP, we've really answered the question, where is the data? Because we have a system called Julie. You can sign up for Julie for free. If you come to the Sensi All demonstration, you'll see Julie, or if you come to the Food Sense webinar, you'll see it in action as well. So we're able to kind of do these wearable sensors. We're able to get the data to the cloud. And once we've got the data to the cloud, then it allows us to start really doing the kind of the algorithms to interpret some of that raw signal as well, which is actually quite tough in a wearable environment. I realize I've got a bit of a link here, so hopefully I'll remember to put the link underneath the video as well. We also have wire sensors. As I say, this is a wire sensor, actually ends up getting implanted in fish. So it's, we've spent over €1 million developing this. We also have a lot of microneedle technology. I realize I've been pretty poor today, but there's a link here. Microneedles are just give you a minimally invasive way of getting sensing technologies through the skin. We also do sweat analysis as well. This is something I've got a link here, so hopefully these links I'll remember to put them underneath the video. So in summary, we do wearable systems. In fact, we are putting cortisol sensors into fish. We're putting glucose sensors into fish. We have put sweat lactate sensors onto people. This is a case study where we took one of our lactate sensors. We put it onto one of our guys. They were working out on the bike, and then we were Bluetooth communication with the laptop in this case, and we were able to measure their start of their exercise, the perspiration, and then the strain time as well. So when they were in strain, or they were really going into anaerobic respiration, then the lactate levels jumped up as well. We've also done some work in the past with Swansea University on drugs of abuse. This is question number 2. So we can very quickly translate this onto the Sensi All platform. Sensi All also has a potentiostat mode called Kate. It's really important to see, because I feel like to close the gap between work that's done in the lab and work that's done, or really, commercial application, actually we need to close the gap. And so Sensi All is this beautiful piece of hardware. It runs electrochemical assays. It's cloud enabled. You'll see that there's an app for this in a minute, but also know that it also has a lab version of it. So you can be using this instrument in your lab just to do basic research. So THC and CBD are electrochemically active. That was always my thesis, and obviously I was, I was correct in it. It's good having a background in organic chemistry as well as electrochemistry, because you can kind of look at molecules and their structures and work out that they're actually electrochemically active. There's a little bit of a video playing here actually, because one of our guys is showing here that they're using the Sensi All hardware to measure an analyte, and they actually even demonstrate at the end of it that the data goes up to Julie, and they could see that electrochemical signal up in Julie. So I am encouraging anyone who wants to do, for example, drugs of abuse type detection with us, please get yourself onto the Sensi All platform, or integrate the Sensi All platform into your proposals, because it means we can have a system where the sensor goes into the hardware, the sample goes onto the sensor, the app tells the meter what to do, the meter gives the data back to the app, and the app gives the data back to Julie, and then actually you get the raw signal as well. And also it does mean you can share the data with people like ZP, and we can also be part of that kind of data interpretation as well. So you've got a principal investigator who can easily see the data, the student who's doing the work, and the supervisors, industrial supervisors, can also see the work as well. Question number 3 is really about testing in water. And it's really linked to question number 4 as well, because question number 4 is asking us what's the applications of ion selective electrodes. And so here, somebody's interested in measuring sodium, potassium, and calcium in water. Again, ion selective electrodes are forms of potentiometric sensors. So if this is a little bit new to you, come to one of our workshops. You can also sign up for the ZP Academy and get some free information on that as well. But we do these ion selective electrodes for calcium, sodium, and potassium. They all work with our Sensi All platform. So anything that's generally on our sort of ZP website is compatible with Sensi All. Sensi All is really come to a really beautiful looking device. And as I say, as I flick through these pictures, also know that there's a version of this called Kate. And Kate is essentially a potentiostat that uses the same chassis and the same electronics as Sensi All. So you can be in a lab, and we're actually getting some nice traction now that people are going to use Kate as a teaching tool. So the students now are not using this kind of potentiostat with all these cables everywhere. They're actually using quite an elegant instrument. So the QR code is something I want you to scan. I'll just leave it up there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. These videos here, whether we're talking about Kate or Sensi All, show you a really nice piece of hardware where, you know, in order to put the kind of sensors in there, it's not some sort of slot that you're trying to slot into. It actually just clicks in place. The nice thing about Sensi All or Kate is it's a total system that, you know, we can run it off the smartphone, and it sends the data to the cloud. And then it's Sensi All is a really robust platform and very flexible. So if you come up with a new assay, for example, THC or CBD analysis, we can generate a QR code for it. And then the app will scan the QR code and give it a new method file and new calibration curve. So basically put the assay that you've otherwise developed onto the smartphone. So the gap between having an assay in the lab and an assay on somebody's smartphone is really closed down. So there's that Sensi All app again. I appreciate if you could scan that. And then you can scan these QR codes through the app, and it will show you that the app can change its target from total antioxidative status to nitrates to ginger to chili. So every time, as we work with more people, then we will bring on more QR codes onto that. So the menu just gets longer and longer. As I say, Sensi All is a pretty elegant platform that we can use with our screen printed electrodes. So I did say at the very beginning, if you are looking to collaborate with ZP, please get onto our screen printed electrodes. It will really help with the translation later on. And I think the electrodes really form the basis of our platform, because they're so repeatable, they're so well manufactured, they're so repeatable that it means that we don't have any issues with error in the field, because error in the field often comes from poor manufacturing reproducibility. Problem with a lot of screen printed electrodes that make it onto the R&D market is that they've got poor repeatability, especially between batches. But at ZP, we've really worked on that, because the people who are most going to suffer from poor reproducibility of our screen printed electrodes would be us, because we use it in many of our products, like our food sense products. So we've really solved that problem. So I hope people will also come to the webinar as well to also get a sense of, when I say the webinar, there's a Sensi All webinar, I think the 13th of September or the 14th of September. Question number 4 is about ion selective electrodes. Which methods do you use at the most? We mostly use what we call open circuit potential measurements. So that's measuring potential at a high impedance. Do you face any challenges? I think ion selective electrodes, at least in the electronics, are one of the easiest sensors around, so not many challenges, to be honest with you. We don't suffer from accuracy or form factor or price. We sort of been manufacturing these almost 8 or 9 years at this point, especially the potassium sensor, so it's really kind of matured. Which ions do you need to detect with the greatest degree of accuracy? See, accuracy for me is not linked to the sensor. Accuracy comes from the total system. So if somebody says to me, well, what's the accuracy of your sensor? It's not a fair question, because it depends on the matrix that they're trying to measure on, and also their system. So if I want to have a very accurate blood gas analyzer, for example, it's perfectly acceptable to have a calibration routine on that sensor, because this instrument is quite large and it can contain liquids. So I don't think we have a problem with accuracy. And our sensors are applied. I would answer this question by saying that ZP would answer this question by really doing a market analysis and a business case review. I have lots of opinions. I have lots of customers on ion selective electrodes, but really to answer that question accurately, that would be something that, you know, we do get commissioned these days to write business cases. I recently actually written a business case for a university in the UK because they were trying to come up with a pathogen sensor, and they wanted to make sure that it was a sort of fundable opportunity. So we did work on that. So I just want to say thank you. I know there was a lot to cover this week, but some of the questions are about collaborations. We do have those kind of collaborations running in the UK. It's really important for me that there's a business case that's being worked out. If you don't have a business case, then it's worth contacting and maybe even commissioning ZP to help write that business case. Our ion selective electrodes, I find them pretty accurate, and they do have applications including water testing. And I would say that wearable biosensors is one of the most challenging things we can do. I think doing it in sweat is actually quite a good idea because regulatory wise, you know, you've got a lot less, because you're not going through the skin, you have a lot less kind of concerns with causing people harm. After that, microneedles are pretty good, and ZP does have a patent portfolio of 50 patents around microneedles. So I suppose in some ways, if you want to discuss some of this with us in person, come to the workshops would be good. We have one running in Coventry. I think it's not next week, but the week after. And also we're going to have that big conference in June, really about commercialization of electrochemical assays, so that might be useful as well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, thanks very much.